gonna think I've just gone wacko. Um, Not much different than any other week, though, right? I know we were off last week, and then I have to apologize. A couple of you pointed out that I did not get the dates to marketing in a timely manner for this next section, but now we are booked through right before the December holidays. So we should be good. And I think I will tomorrow or sometime this week send a reminder to the rest of the group, those people who would like to continue to join us. We will still be doing our good-natured thing for the next few months. The other thing I wanted to say, you might notice that I'm still enjoying the last little bit of delicious meal that I had this evening, courtesy of the King County Farm Bureau. They are honoring the recipients of their scholarships tonight at the King County Cougars game. Susie, I got to give you a big tip of the hat for inviting me to that lovely event. And then also, since we're promoting the King County Farm Bureau, they are having, the foundation is hosting their fundraising gala on the night of Saturday, September 14th, up at the Gilbert's event venue, which is up on Route 47 in Huntley-ish, maybe a little bit south of Huntley on Route 47. It's a great cause. The Farm Bureau Foundation supports a lot of academic activities throughout the area, teaching people where their food comes from. And, you know, no farmers, no food. So if you're interested in more information on that event, which is again Saturday, September 14th, just let me know. And finally, we have not been together now for a couple of weeks. I took last week off to do a bit of traveling, and I know it's kind of weird for the girl who walks pretty much everywhere, but I did actually get in the car and hit the road. And tonight it would be my pleasure to show you where I was spending quite a bit of that time. So why don't we just go ahead and launch into those slides? I don't really have any good visual aids, show and tells this week because frankly, I haven't been in the office much. So let's go ahead and get started, and come on, let's take a little road trip up to a magical land known as the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. As usual, now I got to remember how we do our screen shares. There we go. And let's pick a screen here. And let's find our slides for tonight. And go up to the top and start right here. Let's just close this out. So here we are, folks. This is, believe it or not, a U.S. highway that runs east and west through the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it's a road that I am getting to know a little bit better because I spent most of last week up there, and I had also visited this particular stretch back in May for the purpose of scoping out this little slice of heaven here. This is a little cabin on 40 acres up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I saw this online. I've been just a little background, and believe it or not, we are going to get to the nature in just a minute, but I saw this cabin online. I've been looking casually at property in the UP for about 4 years. I grew up going up to the Upper Peninsula in the summertime for vacation with my family. My aunt and uncle had built a cabin in the eastern part of the UP back in the 1950s. So it was a great place for our family to gather throughout the 60s, 70s, into the 80s. That generation, a lot of them are gone, but now our generation, my cousins and I, are now the users of that cabin. Well, my cousins, a lot of them have kids, and there's not that I have a lot of cousins, but it was hard to get into that cabin, on a regular basis. So I started my search, as I said, back probably about 2020 after having visited the cabin during the pandemic. And I started looking at property. This particular place, though, is about 2 hours west. It's almost actually to Minnesota. It's in the western part of the UP, a little south of the Porcupine Mountains. This cabin, I've always heard the term, and now I know what it means. It's off grid. So there's no electricity. There's no, I shouldn't say there's no grid supplied electricity. There is a generator. So there is, I can turn some lights on at night if I need to. There's no plumbing. So yes, there's an outhouse. It captured my heart. It was sold furnished. So everything you're looking at here came along with it. When I visited last week, all I had to bring was my dogs and some food. The owners, the sellers actually left the dishes, they left the towels, they left the bedding. So yeah, this is where I was last week, and frankly, this right here is what sealed the deal. This is a honest to goodness wood burning cook stove that is still quite functional. The sellers were kind of famous for cooking deals for meals for large groups of friends. In fact, I think the cabin, even though it's only like 900 square feet, it's got a bunch of beds. I think it sleeps 12 people comfortably, and you can probably cram a few more on that futon sofa there if need be. But yeah, this is very similar to the wood stove that's out here at Primrose Farm. And I fully intend to get some practice in there before I start spending more time up here. Little UP oasis. Now, that's kind of the basics of the cabin and why I was up there. But this was the other part. This is what really had me chomping at the bit. It's on 40 acres, which for around here in King County or in St. Charles, 40 acres. We've got some natural areas that are about that size. But up in the UP, 40 acres is kind of like your front yard and your backyard. The way the townships were sectioned off, there was a lot of 40-acre parcels. And this is one of them. It's not lakefront, and it's not on one of the larger rivers, but there is a little creek that runs through it. I asked the sellers, they were nice enough to give me a tour prior to the closing which occurred last week. I said, so what's the name of that creek behind the cabin? And in the 25 years or so that they've had this cabin, they never bothered to check. I was looking, so this is part of what's known as the Ottawa National Forest. And I looked on some of the Forest Service maps. I believe this is called Jackson Creek, and it's a tributary of the Presque Isle River. I might want to confirm that, but it's enough water that there are macroinvertebrates, so I can go down and I can turn rocks over, and I can look at caddis flies. I can look for stone flies. There's also here, now the water was down here. We had some rain, the water went back up again, so it's a little flashy that way where the water goes up and down, but I believe we've got some pretty good salamander habitat too in this area up here. My biggest fear was that this was drainage from a landfill or a mining operation or something, but that's not the case. It's pretty clean water. I wouldn't call it clear. It does have a lot of tannins in it from the conifers and the other trees that are dropping materials into the water. It's got that up north brownish tinge to it, but super cool to poke around in that. Here's another view showing some of the flow to it. This is an area that you, and any of you who are familiar with the UP can picture this. There's a lot of things that used to be there that aren't anymore. There used to be logging operations in the area, and they are no longer active. There used to be mining in the area, not on this particular plot, but not too far away. There's iron mines, there's copper mines, and that has all gone to the wayside. In fact, there actually was a prison not too far away, which was one of the biggest local employers, and that too has closed. So there's been a lot of people who've moved out of the area, which of course isn't great for the local economy. But when you're a nature nerd looking for peace and quiet, I tell you, you can't do better than this. One of the things I kind of struggled with this past week. So I was up there from last Monday until Thursday. So just long enough to sign all the papers and kind of, start getting some plans made for future trips up there. Every time I went out, and the previous owners have created quite a network of trails. They hunted this land. They also rode their horses on this land. So they would mow trails with their tractor. And I would set out, I had tech support puppy with me, as well as Kit, the other furry roommate. She's the one that tends to eat the show and tell objects either before or after our programs. We went out morning and afternoon rambling around on those trails, and if I didn't get lost every single time, not terribly lost, because there's a road nearby, so if I could listen for a car now and then, and make my way back towards the cabin and what little bit of civilization is in this area. But it was just such a blast to wander around, not really aimlessly, but just kind of letting my interest guide where we would go. There's a lot of ferns in this particular area. It's a mixture of hardwoods and conifers. Those trees, and this blew my mind. I was looking at these trees, and I'm going, all right, I can see the leaves, I can see there's some kind of maple tree, but what the heck kind of maple trees grow in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan? Well, on I can't remember, it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I had a representative from the local NRCS office, Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is a division of the USDA. I had a wildlife biologist come out from the local office to just kind of walk around and let me know, if there's something, that I should be aware of, either really good or really bad. And he looked at the trees and he goes, yeah, these are sugar maples. And if you're familiar with sugar maples in northern Illinois, they don't look at all like this. This bark up, the bark up there, it's gray. It's got thick plates to it. And of course, there's a lot of lichens and moss there too. Whereas around here, our sugar maples have a bark that I always look for. It's a light brown, and then it's got almost like a salmon pinkish cast to it, orangish pinkish cast to it in certain lights. Different texture. Frankly, I never even bothered to look at the leaves to see what the leaves look like. I was just, focusing mainly on the barks. But it's sugar maple. There's yellow birch, and then there's spruce. There's cedar. There's fir sprinkled in there as well. And then there's a lot of granite, because again, this is the UP. There's a lot of granite that's very close to the surface, or in this case, right there. What we're looking at here is a little bit behind the cabin, and it is there's some areas where you can see the rock, but a lot of it is covered with a lot of lichens and this fluffy stuff. Well, actually, there's a turkey feather there too, but this stuff, I learned this as reindeer moss. Its proper term is reindeer lichen. Well, it's got a scientific name too, and there are several different kinds. I didn't actually key out reindeer lichen we're looking at here. But this is also the stuff that's harvested and sold in packets that it's dyed and it's sold as packets of shrubbery and trees in craft stores for creating dioramas or hobby shops for making model train layouts. There was just layers and layers of these lichens on that granite. There's a closer look at the turkey feather. And I must have just missed these guys. The days that I was there, there were some pretty good rains in the afternoon. And then we would go out after that towards sunset. And this feather did not look like it had been wet. So it looked like it had been recently dropped. Tech support puppy was able to run around unleashed for the most part. We did visit one area where I put his leash on him, but he didn't come back with a turkey in his mouth. So either the birds got out of the way or they were far enough ahead that he didn't find them. But there is wild turkey flocks in the area. There are also grouse. I'm not sure which grouse. I'm thinking ruffed, but when I had gone up to look at the property in May, wow, I could hear the thump, 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 the sound of male grouse drumming, which is how they impress the ladies, and that's how they go on dates, and that's how we get more grouse. This is a Forest Service road that is across the road from the cabin. So again, the Ottawa National Forest. This is an area that both the realtor and the seller said I needed to go check this out. They said there's a mountain that has a spectacular view looking west. So it's a good time to go would be at sunset. So you can look out when the weather's clear, you can see for miles, and then you can also see the sunset. So one evening, I was kind of watching the clock. You guys know me in time, but I wanted to make sure, we got there with enough time so that we could get a good parking place. And, if we had, wait in line or anything. Well, this was it. It was me, Kit, and Boker, tech support puppy. We were the only non-native creatures that were going down this Forest Service road that as you look towards the end there, you can see it does have kind of an upward slant to it. When we got to the end, there was no parking, but there was and it's not because it was full. I mean, there just is no parking lot in this particular area, but there is a loop. So you don't have to do a 3-point turn or anything. So we parked along that loop at the end of the road. I was tickled to see this sign. There was actually not only this sign explaining garlic mustard, which, by the way, I didn't see one lick of the whole time I was up there. There is a couple of plants that they regard as invasive, one of which is yellow tansy, which we have in some quantities down here, but I didn't see any garlic mustard. Right next to this sign, as you can see where this arrow is pointing, they had a boot scraper, so you could clean your feet off before you started up this somewhat narrow and fairly steep, though not very long of a trail. I did some reading afterwards, and I think they said that it was about 1,500 feet or so. It wasn't, a really long trail, but this was the reward up at the top. This is looking west, just as the sun was setting. I don't think the audio captured very well. I'm not really hearing it. There was some kind of a thrush. In my mind, it was a wood thrush, but again, we're just far enough up that it was an extremely musical flute-like sound that was repeating over and over again as we watched the sun slowly into the west. This view also gives you an idea, again, of the mixture. We've got some pine trees growing up here, and this is, again, this is a Midwest mountain, so we're not looking at, Colorado standard mountains or anything. We're talking about 1,800 feet or so, which is still pretty good. And this is not too far from some of the ski resorts that are up in the UP. So we've got some white pines there to the right. There's a little bit of sumac that you'll see here on the left. I don't know if any of you are believers in orbs. This is probably, just some dust on my camera lens, but there is an orb, going across the screen right here. Some people who believe in orbs say that they are signs from, the energy of those who have passed before us. Let's get that box out of there. I don't know, but it was super cool. And there was not another human or another dog in sight. Now, I'm told that there are quite a few coyotes that live in this area, and there is also a wolf pack that, with all that open space in which to roam, what are the odds that we're going to see something like that? But it was pretty cool to be able to take all of that in. And other than the thrush, I did hear also there were some little cheeps, some little little call notes that I whipped out my phone, and good old Merlin, the Cornell University app, told me that they were the chip notes of the white-throated sparrow. And then I did hear one probably young male testing out his poor Sam Peabody, 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 or Oh Canada, Canada, Canada song. Just one individual that was giving that a whirl, and that was it. There weren't really even any bugs to speak of, other than a few mosquitoes buzzing, but just very, very serene and such a breathtaking view. Here's a still of that same general direction. Gosh, I guess I loaded up on those. Here we are. We're back at the old homestead again. And this, so these sellers, they did buy this, they called it a camp. In fact, shall we call it the privy? The outhouse is back here, because remember, we're talking off-grid living. This was something that prior to staying there for a few days, I was spending quite a bit of time looking online, really wanting to make sure I got some sort of compostable comfort station inside the cabin. But the seller said, that he set things up for the comfort of himself and his guests, and that outhouse is really not bad. It's not anywhere near the cabin. It's a good 7,500 feet away, but it's painted white inside. It's got a regular seat to sit on, and he actually installed a heat lamp. So if you've got the generator on, he said, and it's cold out, you flip a switch in the cabin, and the heat lamp comes on in the privy, warms things up. And yes, I didn't ask about this. I don't think it's functional anymore, but yeah, that's a satellite dish on top of the outhouse. Anyway, so this hoist here, this is where, as hunters, this is where they would bring their deer back to dress. And he said sometimes they'd have 6 guys hunting, they'd bring back 6 bucks, and that rack would be full of deer. He said, though, since the wolves have moved into the area, they ate all the deer, and that's one of the reasons he was selling the cabin. Well, we'll get back to that in a second. What this post now is used for, this bar up here, it appears to be a spot where birds of prey come to cast their pellets. Now, this one is kind of, there were several pellets that look like this. I do not think this was scat. I think these are cast pellets because they were pretty discrete, oblong chunks, spaced a distance away. I was, in fact, the first thing I did as a new homeowner, as I went around the cabin and picked up all of the rodent bait stations that were outside of the cabin. They were using rodent poison in this paradise. And my goodness, if we've got birds of prey that want to come and eat these mice, I don't want them eating mice that are, I would gladly fill the cabin up with mouse traps. You know, if they come inside, a mouse trap is, you know, lethal trap is the humane way to control mice inside a dwelling. But having poison outside, oh, like the first thing I did is I went around and I picked all those up, put them in a garbage bag. Hopefully none of these pellets were, you know, contained mice that were tainted by rodent bait. But I had brought a trail cam up, but I just didn't, had a lot of other things I was, you know, working on. I mean, I never got the trail cam set up. So next time I'll go and maybe get a couple more cameras and set them around key areas like this to see what sort of activity. I wasn't able to figure out what these birds of prey were, but I'm gonna guess if it was a bird of prey, you know, an owl, because they seem to be pretty good sized pellets. However, I did hear ravens in the area, and ravens and even crows too, when they're feeding on carrion and other foods where they're consuming a lot of non-digestible things, they will actually cast pellets as well. So can't really rule them out, but going forward, the critters that are foraging in this area, they'll be eating poison-free rodents. Now, the other thing that I tried mightily to wrap my head around, and it's going to be a process, it's all the different ferns that are growing up there. This is one, so, you know, the NRCS representative that came, a really, really nice gentleman named Parker. He helped some with some identification. He helped with the tree ID, the sugar maples, the firs, the spruces, the yellow birch. He was helping me sort those out. And then I asked him about ferns. He said, well, you know, ferns are tough, which I think we can all agree on that. But he said there are a couple things, a couple ones that he recognized, and this is one of them. Now, this looks, first glance, looks like, you know, a fern. I'm thinking, I don't know very many ferns, so I was thinking like ostrich fern, I don't know. And he said, well, actually, this is called an interrupted fern. And the reason he knows this, and what I wanted to share with you, is the way this fern grows when it's in its reproductive phase. You can see how the leaves are coming off the side of the main stem of the frond here. But look at right here, the leaflets are interrupted. The compound leaves are interrupted here. And again, it's when the fern is reproducing. And remember, ferns are a real primitive type of plant. They don't produce seeds. They have, I think it's spores underneath their leaves, but they lose the leaves here, and so the chain is interrupted. So you see it over here too on this stem on the right. So the interrupted fern, pretty sure I can get that one when I go out there again. And then this one, he said, is called the sensitive fern. And I thought, first of all, sensitive fern, I've seen those in plant stores. You know, you touch them and the leaves fold up, but they don't look at all like this fern. Those are very finely divided leaves. And this one kind of reminded me of staghorn fern, a fern I've seen also, you know, in pots in plant stores. But he said this is a sensitive fern, and the way he remembers it is it's sensitive because it doesn't look like the other ferns. It doesn't have those finely divided leaves. It's pretty chunky. There's a lot of a lot of growth along the stems here. So the sensitive fern and the interrupted fern were two things, two of many, the first two of what I hope will be many ferns that I can learn more about and then share with you. Now this is, there's another gravel road going across the back of the property, and there's tech support puppy, and you can see Kit's little ear here. I did keep him on leash here, even though you can see, now this was rush hour. This was about 5 after 5 on a weekday afternoon. And we walked this road for about 1.5 miles each way. So a total of 3 miles. And it took us, we didn't go very fast. They stopped a lot. So it took probably 1.5 hours or more to do that. And during that time, there were 7 cars. So again, rush hour traffic. After that, it quieted down considerably. But I was struck by the roadside vegetation. You know, around here, what do we see? We see teasel, we see chervil, we see Phragmites. There's a lot of huge masses of invasive plants that we see along our roadways here and there. It was pretty much all native stuff. There were rushes. There was a lot of spotted Joe pieweed, just humming with bumblebees. There was a piece of trash, and I had this, Sarah, I'd be proud of me. I stopped and picked it up. But it's funny, it's UP trash. It's not like around here we see, in fact, lately I've been picking up just around the office here a lot of candy wrappers and things, probably because the Park District camps, the teen camp comes and goes from the Baker Community Center next door here, and I think there's a lot of candy that gets distributed over the course of the day there. But this is UP trash. Look at this. It is it's fishing stuff. It at one time had some sort of baited hooks or something in it. I did also a little bit later find what was left of a cigar wrapper, and I put that inside this little bag of fishing trash. But that was it. There wasn't there wasn't much roadside trash either on that particular little byway. And this, so I mentioned, the seller, one of the reasons he was selling the camp was because the wolves had eaten all the deer. And I thought that was strange because I kept seeing deer tracks, and these were one of several sets of tracks we saw along this particular gravel road, which is right by the cabin. And I asked Parker from NRCS, I said, so, what's the deal with the deer and the wolves? Because it sounded a little one-sided. And he said, yeah, certainly wolves will eat deer. But will they, clear out a population? That wouldn't be good for the wolf pack. So they will diversify their feeding. They don't tend to stay in one spot and eat it clean. They tend to move around. He said, really, looking at the deer population in a bigger picture, he said in the 80s and the 1990s, the deer populations were at a peak. And there was a lot of not so great things that started to happen because they were overpopulated. And so there was more disease, there was starvation from lack of resources. There were some hard winters too that cut back on the deer. But he said another factor is something the UP and the state of Michigan struggles with is the economy, the logging and the mining interests. They they come and they go and they come and they go. And when there is active logging in an area, a lot of trees get cut down. Well, once that is completed, the trees that have been cut, there's regrowth. There's shoots that start coming up from those trees that were cut down, and that's what the deer will come and feed on. A mature sugar maple isn't going to offer much for deer, but a cut down sugar maple that starts to send out new sprouts is going to offer tender shoots, which is something that deer will thrive on. So cutting down some of the, maybe not the bigger mature sugar maples, because I would like to try making some syrup from the sap of some of those larger trees, but cutting down some of the smaller ones and getting regrowth will bring more deer into those woods. The mining, and there actually is talk of a mine, not in this particular area, but up closer to Lake Superior. There is talk of bringing some mining back. I don't think it would have an effect on the deer in this particular area, but I just thought it was interesting. And it's very typical when people, they look at a situation from just one side. And wolves they're always going to be controversial in certain circles. And when they are viewed as something that didn't used to be there, they're going to take the blame, for the changes that follow, even if they're not responsible for those changes. So we'll see. In fact, the seller also said that he had seen a doe and a fawn on his trail cam like the week before. So yes, there are deer in the area. Wolves didn't get them all. Didn't see a single wolf, but doesn't mean I wouldn't want to. There's also some bears. I did look pretty carefully because we had these rains, and so the tracking conditions were pretty good along these gravel roads. Didn't see anything that looked like bear tracks, but there's a lot of open country for those animals to roam in. A little close up there of a deer track. So this might look like a little bit of a tangle. This is something that we actually can look for here in Kane County too. And not everything up there was completely different from what we have around here. But this caught my eye right in the center of this picture. Can you see the white growth there? First, I was thinking, oh, fungi. There's a crop of mushrooms there. And then I looked again and I wait a minute. Those are not mushrooms. This is a plant. Let's look at it a little bit more closely. You might recognize it from this view if you've heard about them or read about them. They used to be known by the common name of Indian pipes. Now, I guess the more politically correct term is ghost pipes. But they are a plant that is doesn't need chlorophyll, so it's not green. It doesn't make its own food. It does have roots. It's got all the other plant parts, so it's not a fungus. It is a plant, but it's called a saprophytic plant, which means that it relies on it consumes the organic matter that is digested by, in this case, the mycelia of mushrooms. So that's how it makes its way. Let's see, I think I've got some other pictures here too. Here's a nearby mushroom. Now, whether the mycelia from that mushroom are feeding those ghost pipes, I don't know. They were certainly feeding. It's funny, I saw this slug on the left. Didn't realize till after I was looking at these pictures on the computer that this slug on the left has a friend over here on the right, and they were both going to town on this particular mushroom, which is the fruiting body. What we see above the ground is only a fraction of the actual fungal organism. A lot of what's going on underneath are these mycelium, which are a network of fibers which are digesting the leaves and the other organic matter that is on the forest floor. Well, the ghost pipes then take that nutrition up. I got Dick Young's book out here. I was curious to see what Mr. Young had to say about Indian, what he refers to as Indian pipes. Monotropa uniflora is the scientific name, and he and Dick Young's books were written in the, I think, the 1970s. Let's see if he's got a copy right here. Oh, no, I'm way off. 1986, 70s, 80s, whatever. So he says that this is a rare plant found in rich woodlands at Sleepy Hollow Ravine and Freeman's Cave, and it's one of the most delightful plants, lacking chlorophyll and feeding on decaying vegetation. These little saprophytic cameos of waxy white stalks and abbreviated leaves are crowned by pristine late summer blossoms, and aptly firm, how intriguing. Wait, I'm not sure I get the sentence. Aptly firm, how intriguing and versatile life forms can be. Confirm? Intriguing and versatile life forms. That sums up this plant. So we're looking here, I mean, it is an honest to goodness flower, even though it's not green. There is a little blush of pink here above the flower head, but look, there are insects that are attracted to this, and it does get pollinated and it does produce seeds, and that's how we get more ghost pipes. But it was such a thrill to be able to find this plant growing there in the shade, and doesn't need sun. It reminded me, and Jerry, I'm not sure if you're here tonight. This was a plant Jerry had sent in pictures of a couple of weeks ago. This is a plant that we see also in this area. I did not see this up north, but we're actually going to segue in. We'll have more pictures from Michigan in future weeks, but I did also want to get to what's amounted to kind of a backlog of correspondence because we did not get together last week. But this was a plant Jerry saw. It's called cancer root, and it too does not need chlorophyll. It in its case, and I'll see what Dick Young says about it. Canophilus americana, also rare, also found in rich woods, in Norris woods. And I do remember years ago coming across some dried examples of cancer root up at Norris woods there, just north of Potawatomi. Mr. Young says it is lacking in chlorophyll and is parasitic on oak roots, it resembles a fungus with bract-like leaves and small tubular maroon-stained yellowish June flowers. So, and just because a plant, having chlorophyll is not part of the definition of being a plant. You can, organisms can be plants and get their nutrition some other way than by making it with their own chlorophyll. Now, Meredith, I'm not sure if you're on tonight either, but I don't know if local folks, if you recognize this building from this particular view or that particular view. This is in building in Batavia, and those birds, if you look back here, these are turkey vultures. This is the funeral home down in Batavia, and apparently it is quite a popular roost with the vultures. Some local folks in Batavia have noticed this and gotten kind of a kick out of it. I actually drove by there last Friday and didn't really have time to fully scout it out, but there were, I would say, 8 or 10 turkey vultures circling in the area at that time. That was around, it was a little bit after 4 o'clock last Friday. So just kind of one of those things. I haven't been able to find out a lot more yet. I don't think it's the fact that it's a funeral home that these vultures are roosting there. It probably has something more to do with maybe it's a good spot to you know, catch the morning light. A lot of times turkey vultures are not the first birds to get going in the morning. They like to warm their wings in the sun, so maybe it has something to do with that. It's not too far from the river, and river, there's always some tasty dead things along the river that these birds might be availing themselves of. If I get to the bottom of what the attraction is there, I will certainly let you know. But if you're in the area, check it out. It seems to be a semi-regular occurrence to see all these vultures there at the funeral home. This was just a little reminder. This is the up close view, and this is the farther away view of a very robust poison ivy plant. We are now, the plant has gone from its small beginnings where there's a lot of red color in the stems and on the leaves. And the leaves, some of them still, you can see the characteristic cuts along the edges here. We call them the thumbs of the poison ivy leaves, but in some of these leaves, the borders have gotten, they're smooth at this large size, and so the eros or irregular edges to the leaves isn't always a good way to go with identifying this leaf, but it is at a time of year where it is producing fruit. And I've heard both extremes. I've heard that this is a very nutritious berry that birds rely on. And I've also heard that it's a fruit that birds will eat, but it's more, it fills their tummies, but it's not necessarily giving them the nutrition that they might find from, say, raspberry or a blackberry or something. I don't know. I haven't found a good source to say which is correct of those, but it is consumed by birds. And this is how we end up getting more poison ivy because they will eat those berries and then distribute the seeds later on. Again, humans really are the only animals around here that have an allergic reaction or the potential for an allergic reaction to this plant. Most other animals can brush up against it or even eat it and be just fine. Now this is not a great picture. I was hoping it would turn out better, but this was zoomed in like, I don't know, 25 times or so from my cell phone. This is the array of lights at Burgess Field, which is the football stadium for the Geneva High School Vikings. And this is a young red-tailed hawk. And I thought I'd made you guys a video where you could hear it calling, and it just, the audio just didn't come through on the video. But you know that the sound of a red-tailed hawk, that kind of high-pitched, I'm a terrible imitator of hawks. It's kind of a it's a high-pitched whistle. It kind of trails off. Blue jays actually do a really good imitation of red-tailed hawks, but this bird was just incessant, and it's a good something else, something you can be listening for too, because this is the time of year when red-tailed hawk parents start withholding food from this year's young. So these birds hatched back probably in March or maybe April, and they've been under their parents' care all along. The birds, the fledglings are about the size now, pretty much the same size as their parents. So size is not a good way to tell if the bird is young, but behavior is going to give them away, because they're they're not abandoned in the sense that the parents have just, left them, but the parents are not helping them at all at this point because it's time. They've been bringing them food. They've been showing them how to catch food. This is the time. This is going to make or break a lot of these young birds. Mortality rates for birds of prey is usually 50% or more each year. This is the first test. Can they find food? The next test is going to come when the weather gets cold. Can they find enough food to stay warm and survive? So there's some trials to come. This bird, if this was a better picture, you'd see that while it's the same size as a mature red-tailed hawk, it lacks the red tail. And it's just noisy. It was sitting up there, and about every 10 seconds, it would let go with one of those plaintive cries. And I think that there were 2 birds from this nest. I had been seeing the parents, and I've been hearing blue jays all summer long scolding. So I know the nest is somewhere near this field. I thought I had seen 2 birds earlier with the parents. This one now, was sitting by itself. I don't know if, the sibling is still around or not, because can be tough being a young hawk. But anyway, keep your ears open. I would imagine that if it hasn't started now, it will very soon. You can be hearing the begging calls of great horned owls too at night, because the owl parents are going to do the same thing. They've been raising their youngsters for even longer because they nested back in January and February. So their young of the year are also going to be urged towards independence. When a young owl, and again, great horned owl is what we're talking about, when they're begging for food, to my ear, they sound like a cat. And so you hear that repeated call. Sometimes it's got kind of a screechy aspect to it too. You hear that up in a tree. Chances are you've got a young owl in your yard or your neighborhood that's looking for something to eat. John and Bobby, I know you said you were gonna, not sure if you'd be joining us tonight, but this is a caterpillar from the white-marked tussock moth, and we've been seeing these guys now for a while. This is, I think it's one of our coolest looking caterpillars. And what strikes me about them at this stage, not just all the the different colors and the tufts and everything that they have going on, but they also they have a huge range of host plants. Some of our caterpillars are very picky, and they will just eat, well, I shouldn't say picky, but they have a very limited number of species of host plants. Sometimes it's like with monarchs, it's only milkweed. The caterpillars can only feed on milkweed. Our black swallowtail butterflies, they can only feed on plants in the parsley family. These guys, they eat, lots and lots of different types of leaves. Surprisingly, actually, that we don't see more of these caterpillars, but they are super cool looking. And it's the white-marked tussock moth caterpillar. This actually came from a reader who had apparently they found the spider, and then they went online to try and identify it. And they wrote that they had found it while they were doing laundry, and was wondering if perhaps it was an eastern parson spider. This is actually this is what a parson spider looks like. Named for the resemblance to the white markings, as they resemble the white collar of a clergyman, a parson. This, though, you can see it's a little different. And if we zoom in, can we zoom in here? Yeah. It gets a little blurry, but there's actually a couple of projections, some spinnerets here at the tip of the abdomen, and then we can see some shadows here indicating that this spider has boxing gloves. Well, we get kind of blurry there, but this is actually a male, not, hold on, not Parson spider as we see here, but a male grass spider, the Gelenopsis or funnel weaving spiders that we have in this area. They're the ones that make the big sheet webs that we're seeing now on our shrubs and in our lawns. Some of you longtime good-natured viewers might remember dining room spider. Dining room spider is also a grass spider. She, in a perfect world, would have met a male, as we saw on that pair of blue jeans in the first picture. But this, that's the kind of spider that that particular reader had found. Grass spiders are pretty much everywhere right now. This is their season from now until the frost. We'll see their thick webs. They'll have a funnel at one end. The females make the more obvious webs, and they hang out in that funnel. And then males will approach. They'll kind of knock, knock, knock on the web, and if the female is receptive, he'll get invited in and they'll go on a date. But the markings here, there is some bold marking here on the carapace, the cephalothorax here at the front part of the body, and it is, while it's bold, it does not look like a clergyman's collar, like what we see here on our Parson spider. One more, actually a couple more quick things here. And again, Jerry, I'm not sure if you're here tonight, but this was a picture that our friend Jerry took of the American snout butterfly, and it is aptly named. So it's a butterfly because it's got the little clubs here at the end of the antennae. It's not a moth, it's a butterfly. And look at its snout. Pretty cool. Great name for a great local butterfly. And every year I say, boy, you know, if the St. Charles East Saints ever want to rebrand themselves, I think this caterpillar here would make a great mascot, keeping the tradition of orange and black. This is a milkweed tussock moth caterpillar. So we've had a lot of correspondence lately about the lack of monarch butterflies, the lack of caterpillars on milkweed plants. I have those seen a pretty fair number, pretty good number of the milkweed tussock moth caterpillars on the milkweed. So it's at least there's some lepidopterans feeding on that plant. Jerry had also sent this hoverfly. I thought this was a great representation. So these are bee mimic flies. They're pollinators. They feed on nectar. And if we look really closely, we not only see one. So we see the lack of bee antennae here at the front. We do see what looks like bee markings on the back, but again, this is a fly because it only has one pair of wings instead of two pair or a total of 4 wings. It just has the one pair of wings, and then it's got, you can see this right where the cursor is pointing here, that there's a little white structure on either side of the body called a haltere. That's the replacement for the second pair of wings in our flies. And then lastly, we have here, Asian multicolored Asian lady beetles. They're the ladybugs that everybody loves to hate. They've got this marking here on the pronotum, which is the shield above the head. It looks like an M. You have to, from this angle, you kind of have to use your imagination, but this dark marking on the white part there, I always like to think of it as M for multicolored Asian lady beetle. These things were imported back close to 100 years ago to help combat soybean aphids, and they are outcompeting a lot of our native ladybugs. But Jerry found what she thinks is a a fungal infection that might be helping to control these particular types of beetles. With that, folks, I see we started a little late. We're going to end a little late. I'm going to stop the slides here. If I remember how, there we go. And I think I saw that we had a couple of chats here, a couple of comments. Well, is there a lottery for your guest list? You know what, Wallace, I've been saying, I would much rather know that there's somebody in the cabin than to have it sitting empty. So yeah, if you're, we'll stay in touch, because I right now I'm thinking the poor cabin is all alone up there in the woods. But we've got lots more to share, and we will do that in future weeks. So folks, I greatly appreciate those of you who went to the extra effort to track down the sign up, even though I didn't make it easy, but I will send an email out with a direct link for future weeks. Much appreciate your time tonight, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll be back again next Tuesday night for more good nature. Thanks, everybody.
Truly enjoy your new house.
Thanks, Pam. Thank you, Pam. Love
Thank
your
you.
new cabin.
Thanks, Pam.
Hey.